Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Today is Monday, 26th day of September 2016. Now, you probably noticed over the past week that when we start up the show, there's a hitch and a glitch in the whole intro. And so I finally got a warning signal last night that the hard disk was failing. So I'm in the process of replacing that, so today, no lovely intro music, no advertisements, just straight to the markets. I hope you had a great weekend. Hope you had a chance to spend some quality time with the family. That's what weekends are for. And of course, boating and fishing and golfing and, all of the other things that traders do. Let's see what the markets are doing. Now, we got some movement from Friday. We put it on high, or actually that was Thursday. We put in a high up at our weekly trading zone. Tagged it a few times. These are 30-minute candles. And we've slowly, I should change this to say, last week's highest weekly trading zone.
Hey, Dwayne.
Yes.
We're not broadcasting. I don't know if you knew that.
Well, no. I didn't know that.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Today is Monday, 26th day of September 2016. You may have noticed last week that there was a hitch and a glitch in the intro to the show. Something wasn't quite right, and I kept rebooting it, and usually when things don't go right, if you reboot something, it tends to fix it. Last night I got a hard disk failing warning, and I said, So I'm in the process of taking care of that. So today, no intro, no advertisements, no how do you do, no nothing, just straight to the markets. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope you had a chance to spend some quality time with your family. And if you are here for the first time, a special welcome to you. If you are listening, actually you can't listen to the audio stream today because that computer's down. So I won't even go into how you look at the screens because you're either in or you're out. Okay? Those of you who have been around for a while already know the deal. So let's take a look at the numbers and see what we got here in the U.S. Color of the day, definitely red. The Dow's down 141 points. NASDAQ is down 40. S&P 500 is down 14. And the Russell 2000 is down 8. In our commodity basket, different color of the day. We're all green there. Crude oil is up $1.41. Gold is up $2.60. In Asian markets, the Nikkei is down 209 points. Now that's over 1%, 1.25. Shanghai is down 52 points. That's 1.75%. And the Hang Seng's down 368 points. That's 1.5%. And the color of the day continues in Europe with the DAX down 233 points. That's over 2%. FTSE down 91. That's over 1%. And the CAC down 80. That's almost 2%. So is this finally it? I mean, we hit last week's weekly trading zone. Spot on. And we spent Friday last night, and so far today, heading lower. Now, everybody's been looking for the top. Part of it could be that tonight we have a really big event that I know everyone's on the edge of their seat waiting for. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are set to face off directly on stage for the first time Monday night in front of what's expected to be perhaps the largest television debate audience of all time. All at a moment when the presidential race is tighter than ever. For 90 uninterrupted minutes on a stage at Hofstra University in Hempstead, New York. What if that means no commercials? They make an awful lot of money off those commercials. I'm thinking it's going to be interrupted. But we'll see. The two candidates will discuss issues of national security and the state of the American economy. So, two big issues. They're going right at it at the very first debate. National security. We're talking immigrants. We're talking building fences. And I came across a clip of Hillary Clinton back in 2006. And she had some very interesting things to say about how we should handle the immigrant problem and the security measures that we should use, physical barriers, she called them. Sounds kind of like a wall. But those were her ideas back then. She's had a chance to be mentored by Barack Obama for the last 8 years. So, maybe she's learned a thing or two. We'll see what she says tonight. And it's going to be, Hillary is pretty skilled behind the microphone. Donald has a tendency to just kind of go off the deep end. So, I hope that tonight he holds it together, that he is presidential in every possible way, and that the American people can begin to get away from personalities and just simply start to see who is qualified to do the job. And, of course, there's going to be a lot of mudslinging, and it's not going to be just between these two debaters, but the media, well, the media's already started. I mean, they're claiming that Donald Trump does not want there to be any fact checkers at the debate. Now, come on, really? But that's what mainstream media says, that Hillary invites the fact checkers, but Donald says no because they're just going to side with her. And whatever she says goes. Well, I think he's got a point, but you know what? He's going to have to deal with it. I mean, comes with the territory. So they're going to talk about the national security. They're going to talk about the state of the economy. The debate will be simulcast on multiple television networks as well as on social media sites like Facebook and Twitter. Monday night's program is widely expected to eclipse the debate viewership record, which stretches back a few years. 80 million people tuned in to watch Jimmy Carter take on Ronald Reagan and close in on the highest rated television event of the year, the Super Bowl. It could hardly come at a more crucial time for either candidate, with a record number of voters expressing negative sentiments about both candidates. Some observers argue that the candidate able to put voters' concerns at ease with a memorable line may be able to come out on top. Matt, McGowiak, the GOP strategist who is president of the Potomac Strategy Group, said the debate would be won by the candidate who is able to best parlay barbs and address his or her own shortcomings head on. On a macro level, it's going to be, does Trump address his weaknesses and does she address hers? Both of them are going to try to deflect away from their weaknesses onto the other person. Clinton has been preparing for the debate for months. I would assume Donald has been as well. Hunkering down but although I take that back, because Hillary has known from the beginning that she was going to be the candidate. See, Donald had to outdistance 15 other people to get the nomination. And then going into the convention, it was still a little bit shaky if they were going to give him the nod or not. But I'm talking Bernie Sanders here. This poor guy campaigned his heart out. If he wasn't a socialist, I'd feel sorry for him. He tried so hard. And all the young people got the burn. Now, I agree with none of that nonsense. However, how unfair was it for the DNC to allow him to run a campaign, collect money from donors who may have, scrimped and saved to donate to his campaign, when in fact the DNC had no intention whatsoever of letting him partake in the election. So I hope Donald brings that up tonight. I hope he gets that out in front of the American people straight away. I hope he addresses that head on. It has to come up. Let it come up tonight so that it can color however many other debates we have. Hunkering down with top campaign officials, the former Secretary of State has reviewed briefing books on Trump's past statements and business dealings and studied briefings on his psychology and his reactions in past debates. She also has reportedly prepared strategies to face off against both a subdued Trump attempting to legitimize himself to voters who are on the fence, or a ferocious and an aggressive Trump of the kind who belittled and interrupted opponents on stage during the Republican primary debates. Now think about it. Which Trump do you want to see tonight? The Trump that knocked the other 15 out of the running? I mean, that is the guy that America said they wanted. But now that it's let's get serious time, we have to ask ourselves, is that who we want? I mean, we know we don't want Hillary. That's just out of the question. But if you don't vote for a non-vote for Donald is a vote for Hillary. It might even be 2 votes. I don't know. Vote early, vote often. Clinton has also reportedly scheduled a full mock debate, a tedious process that can eat away at precious preparation time and that often leaves candidates drained. The New York Times reported last week that Clinton aide Philippe Reines would play Trump, signaling to many observers that she was hoping to prepare against someone who was not afraid to go after her personal weaknesses. Well, look, I think she has to talk directly to the American people about what she wants to do. That came out on Meet the Press Sunday from Clinton Champagne Care, John Podesta. I think when you think about what's honest about her, it's that from the day she left law school, she's been a champion for women, for children, for families. No, she hasn't. Let the record reflect. That is not who she is, and it's not what she's done. That's not some conspiracy theory, it's a fact. He added she's done it all her life. She's gotten real results for people. In contrast, Donald Trump's been all about himself, but she's got to tell people what she wants to do for them. Now, Trump's preparation has reportedly taken on a much different shape. He has largely rebuffed attempts to nail down concrete one-liners and invest hours into poring over debate preparation books, saying he wants to appear authentic and unscripted. I think that's what America needs to see. The Times reported that Trump had opted against selecting one person to play his opponent in mock debates, a customary political ritual, and many early debate preparation sessions reportedly ended without much progress. Still, Trump has also espoused the value of being unpredictable and could take a steadier approach that would defy some expectations. Politico reported that Trump was retaining the conservative polling firm Cambridge Analytica to study Clinton's past debate performances and create a psychological profile based on their psychographics technique, which attempts to target specific groups of voters based on their psychological profile. Trump's got a lower bar to get over than Hillary does. On the other hand, she's been preparing, and he hasn't. Most observers agree the debate could easily set the tone for the next several weeks of campaigning, or until the two candidates meet again on October 9th. Polls show the real estate magnate to be closing in on Clinton in key swing states. According to the Real Clear Politics average of recent reputable polls, Trump leads Clinton in states including Florida, Ohio, Iowa, Maine, Nevada, and North Carolina. If history is a precedent, a debate win for either candidate could affect the polls. Former Governor Mitt Romney of Massachusetts cut into President Barack Obama's lead in 2012 after the president delivered a widely panned performance during the first debate. Remember that? It was like sleepy time. He still won. And many past campaigners have blamed losses on the debates themselves. Some advisors to Al Gore point to the former vice president's barely concealed contempt for George W. Bush, then the governor of Texas, during the first debate as Gore's undoing in the whole general election. The response of former Governor Michael Dukakis of Massachusetts to a question about his position on the death penalty that some viewed as insensitive was largely seen as a nail in the coffin in his campaign against George H.W. Bush, who was at that time the vice president. So tonight, guys, for 90 minutes, we get to sit and watch the next President of the United States of America. It's going to be one of the two. And it's our vote, or so they tell us, that makes the difference. That's a whole nother question in and of itself. So with that said, let's head out to Michael, get a recap of everything that happened in the live trading room, and then I'll be back with a good word for the day and who knows what else. Dane Wigington joins us today at the top of the hour. So, take it away.
All right. I will do so. Okay, let me hit the record button. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Today is Monday, the 26th day of September, 2016. Today in the live trading room, it was a slow day again today. We did get our goal for the day, but we ended with plus 4 ticks in soybeans, plus 2 ticks in the euro, and minus 1 tick on crude oil. So we made $52 today. Let me pump this up here and see. Okay, no commercials is what they're saying. It took us 12 minutes and 2 trades to get to $100 a contract today, and we took a total of 8 trades. So we're up $52 on the day. On the month now, we're up $2,436.25. That's over 17 trading days, averaging $143 a day. If you apply any dollar commission to every trade we've taken, you'd have a net profit of $868. With a $5 commission, you'd have a net profit of $1,456. On the year now, we're at $43,281. That's over 181 trading days, averaging $239 per day. Okay, $239 per day. What is this number down here? 1265 divided by 1275. 1260. Yes. I don't know. I'll figure it out later. Anyway, if you have not taken the free trial with us, go here to the home page at CFRN.net. Just go right here to our home page, and in the right-hand column where it says register for a free trial, put in your name, put in your email, click on register for a free trial. When you do that, you'll be sent a confirmation link. You must click the confirmation link. Okay? If you click the confirmation link, you will get your free trial. Alright, now, gold finally broke out of that area. We didn't trade gold at all today. We can take a look at it, but you can see I had drawn in this box, and you could even bring the box back here. It was in a pretty tight range all day today, gold was, and we didn't have any trade setups. Okay, so we did not trade gold at all this morning. The ES, let's just have a look. We didn't like the long here because the cycle was going down too steep. That's why I didn't put a circle on it. Yeah, and that was it. There was nothing really much happening there on the ES today either. Okay, on crude oil we did trade today. We started out with crude right here. This is where we got our goal for the day. We got 5 ticks profit on that one. Then we stopped out here, putting us at -3. Then we got a couple back there, putting us at -1. Missed a trade there, missed a trade there. Missed a trade there. And we took a trade here, which was break even. And let's see, the cycle wasn't letting us trade in this mess right here. This was as we were shutting down. So during the break, we'll say, it was well, we had to break dynamic support here before we could go with any momentum trade. So we really didn't have anything in there. Bounce off the BBC type long right here, but we weren't trending, so I wouldn't take that either. You could have shorted right here. It would have been a break-even trade, and that was it on crude today. It was just a tough day on crude oil. Soybeans, they didn't move all that much today either. We got in a short trade right here and took 4 ticks profit on it. And nothing. I mean, really nothing since then. The euro, we had I didn't mark up my first trade on the euro. My first trade on the euro was right here. I took 8 ticks profit on it. And then next was right there. I took 2 ticks profit. That put us at +10. Then I stopped out over here. That put us back down to +2. Okay, and during the break, once dynamic support was broken here, then you could have taken a short trade right in there. Okay, but that was all there was during the break. So that was it today. Not a lot of movement. Alright. So, again, to take the free trial, go to the homepage at CFRN.net in the right-hand column where it says register for a free trial. Put in your name, put in your email, click on register for a free trial. When you do that, you'll be sent a confirmation link. You must click that confirmation link. Okay? If you don't click the link, you don't get the trial. And our recap today. Today it took us, I'm sorry. Today we made 4 ticks in soybeans, 2 ticks in the euro, and we lost 1 in crude oil. Okay. It took us 12 minutes and 2 trades to get to $100 a contract, and we took a total of 8 trades today. 8 trades. Okay. And that's it. With that, I'll stop the recording. And if Dwayne is available, we can head back out to fabulous Phoenix, Arizona. Dwayne, are you available? Okay. Dwayne is not available. Anyway, let's draw a trend line there. The cycle's going up too steep here, but this is a 164 long. And this right over here was a 164 short. Right in there. Okay. For those of you guys who know what those trades are. If you've been following those trades. And let me bring this back up. Slide it over here. And click on that. And yeah, that's it. Alright. So I'll just wait for Dwayne to show up or just go through trade setups as they happen. Does anybody have any questions about anything? Anything that I've just said? Yes, no. Okay. Okay, so on crude oil, we have a trend line. We need to close up above that trend line. Okay. And if we blow this up, we'll see right there. I'll take that. Now what we anticipate happening with this is the green line turning up and getting up into the cycle. When it does, we should have a higher swing in place. So what you do is you look at the prior leg length like this, okay, to get an idea of what to expect out of the trade. That way you're not just totally blind. See that big number up there? It wants to get up there. And where is that? That's probably right about where my line ends. Yeah, my line goes up to 46.12. And that big number is at 46.10. So that's just about right. I'm just going to wait here until Dwayne either comes back or somebody asks me a question. I am long crude oil right here. You can see I got long crude on the up close and the trend line right there. Okay. And I anticipate it getting up to 46.10 or 46.12 up in this area right here. Okay, I'm going to put a target up there because that is the end of this leg length. So that's what it should do. Now, the ES needs to get out of this weekly trading zone, preferably above it. Usually when the ES is moving up, crude will move up with it. Okay. See, if you look at these two charts side by side, and you make them make them a 5-minute chart. So you're looking at apples and apples. You see the shape of the chart right here? See, it went down, went back up, came down. Okay. Went down, went back up, and came down. And it's similar. See? So if we can get this ES moving, then that would be good. You see we have closed above the MA1 on this. So this is where I would typically throw my stop at break even, like that, but it didn't let me put it there. So I should have had my stop at break even on this already. It went up to the prior swing high. There. Okay, now I'm flat. I'm out of the trade. But it should get up to 46.10 or 46.12. Okay. I don't hear you, Dwayne. There you go.
I haven't said anything yet.
Oh, okay. Alright. Because I've been done for 5 minutes. Okay, well that's it. So I put on one trade there for him after I finished the recap. And ended up with a break even.
Okay.
That would be my stomach.
Okay, Mike, thanks very much.
Okay. Alright.
Okay, guys, we're going to jump over to our good word for the day. Let me get the screens back.
I pushed them over to you.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Okay.
Alright, we're bouncing down here off this 41-42 area, which was a zone from last week. These are all last week's weekly trading zones. There's Thursday, then the decline Friday into last night's Globex Open. So it's just been leg, retrace, leg, retrace, leg, retrace, leg, retrace, leg, retrace, and attempted a leg, but we can't seem to break that 2141 area. It's holding tight. And then below that, remember we have the 2015 high at 2134. So now this week's zones, yeah, we're still in an area where we have zones for this week, so we're about 4 points deep here on what's happening. So let's move along. Again, Dane's going to join us at the top of the hour, I believe. He's pretty reliable on Mondays. So I want to get a good word for the day done ahead of that. Jake, did Michael answer your question for you? I wonder why. Well, it's the thing that we've talked about for some time. Hopefully by the end of this week, our indicator set will be available on multi-charts. And that's going to open up CFRN to a lot of Canadians that in the past were unable to participate. I assumed he would talk about that this morning in the live trading room. I guess he didn't. So there's your buzz. But you're already in. You must be in a province where you're okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay, today we're going to talk about staying power. This is part one of a couple days. When something new comes down the pike, it's easy to get a little fired up, and ready to rumble. But once we hit a few snags and a few obstacles, sometimes it's a little difficult to keep that same level of excitement going. Paul wrote about this in 2 Corinthians 4:8. We are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed. Here's a saying that is proven to be true. What doesn't destroy us makes us stronger. So, when things don't go your way, when you're not on the mountaintop, when the refrigerator isn't full, there isn't money in the bank, there isn't gas in the tank, how do you hang in there? Here are 4 sayings that have proved to be false. Number 1, when you become a Christian, all your problems are over. Well, we know that's not true. Whoever told you that didn't get it from Scripture. Paul said we are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. All the problems you'll ever encounter are addressed in the Bible. God tells us many things in His Word, but He still requires us to walk by faith and not by sight. At 2 Corinthians 5:7. That means receiving guidance from His Word, from the promptings of the Holy Spirit, from the counsel of godly friends. If you're having problems, this is number 3. Number 1 was when you become a Christian, all your problems are over. We know that's not true. 2, all the problems you'll ever encounter are addressed in the Bible. God tells us many things in His Word, but He still requires us to walk by faith and not by sight. Number 3, if you're having problems, you must be unspiritual. Some people in some churches, in some faiths, in some walks, can become so legalistic that if you dare to get a cold, they want to know, what did you do wrong? What sin have you committed? Now, what's really painful is they turned that same type of thinking even on themselves. They ask themselves, wow. And so they lived in this continuous cycle of condemnation, which is no good for anybody. If you're having problems, you must be unspiritual. Nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, the very opposite is true. The enemy's attack is proof that you haven't been conquered, that you represent a threat to the kingdom of darkness, and that you're doing the will of God. And the greater the attack, the greater the level of blessing that awaits you beyond it. So, guess what? Keep going. Don't give up. Number 4. Being exposed to sound Bible teaching automatically solves every problem. Well, it will help you solve your problems, but it won't solve them for you. You follow me? In other words, being exposed to sound biblical teaching will give you the ammunition that you need to face the problem, to face the obstacle, whatever it is, whatever's wrong. You'll know what's right. The question is, will you do what's right? Or will you just go back and listen to some more tapes or some more CDs or watch some more videos and get some more good sound biblical teaching and then do nothing with it? At some point you have to say enough is enough, and I've got to do something about this. It's making me crazy. That's when you start to make progress. Real progress. Paul writes, "Be strong in the Lord and in His mighty power. Put on all of God's armor so that you will be able to stand firm against all the strategies and tricks of the enemy." It's Ephesians 6:10, 10 and 11. Back to what I just said, you have to be a doer of the word, not a hearer only. James 1:23. A lot of times that's what leads to a backslidden condition. Somebody's really on fire for God. They really want to make a difference in the world. And so they sit and they listen and they hear and they get excited. They jump up and down. They raise their hands. They say amen. And then they walk out the doors and go right back into the same lifestyle, doing the same thing, in the same manner, in the same way. Now, you don't want that to be you, right? So then you have to tackle the problem. Ephesians 6:10. Put on all God's armor so that you will be able to stand firm against all the strategies and tricks of the enemy. This is what will give you staying power. The ability to see whatever the problem is all the way through to the end. All right. Now that's part one. We'll catch part two tomorrow. Let's take a look at our Concierge Trade Alerts from last night. We didn't have a lot of movement last night. Well, we went from 60 down to 42. That's 18 points. Actually, we got down to 61. That's actually better than what we've seen here of late. So, let's just see what we can see about last night. Okay, on the S&P, we were looking to buy 64 if the market gave us an opportunity, but as we can see, it did not. So how about selling 55? Well, that was doable. This was where we opened, and this is where we had the opportunity to sell 55. Now, as you can see, price bounced off that old weekly trading zone, back up, back down, back up, back down. Important prices, important areas, almost always tested. Okay? Now, on this first move down, we made it to 44. Let me put this in. Sell 21.55. Okay. Now the first swing low here, after some back and forth and back and forth. Now from 55 down to 53, that was a chance to get your 2 points and another chance to get your 2 points. If that's what you were looking to do, if you're trading the 2420 blueprint, looking for your 2 points for the day, there you go. Okay. Now, the first big drop took us to a low of 44.25. So if we take 44.25 and we just round it up to 45 to make things real simple, that gives us 10 points available per contract. So a 10-point move in an hour and a half. Okay, we don't get out at the exact swing low or swing high because we trail our stop. So we'll always leave a little something on the table. And that little something will have to do with a couple things. One, how closely you trail your stop, and two, how jumpy the market is. Is it flowing steadily? We get a pullback, leg, retrace, and then we've been held up here at last week's zone, 41.42. And so the swing low on this really this move just took you right back to here. So if we just call it the 42 area, 42 to 55, that would be about 13 total. So we'll just keep the chart as clean as possible. There's 10 here. If you held through this, which is kind of doubtful, chances are once you saw 10 points on the table and this thing started to backtrack, you probably said, I'm good. And now we have to wait and see if this 41.42, is this going to be the low of the day? Is it going to be the low of the week? Okay. Now the weekly trading zones went out this morning to the partners at 6:15 a.m. Eastern. Sorry, I just had to I thought there might be an email in there from Dane. He'll be here in just a few minutes, if he's not already here. If you are here, Dane, just go ahead and speak up. Alright, let's move real quick to the Dow. And these are, I think those might be 2 weeks old. Last night in the Dow, we were looking to sell 181.60, and that opportunity presented itself right here. And it presented itself with that same $181.60. There we go. So we come down through it, back up a little bit, and then do you see how the pattern is almost identical with what we had in the ES? It's been that way. I can vouch for the fact that it's been that way since 2005. How long it's been like that before then, I I think since the beginning, however far back that would be. Okay, so we've got 160. Here we're gonna need a calculator for this one. 180, 160. What's wrong with this thing? First my hard drive, now my calculator. 180, 160 minus 180, 67. So 93 points. $93 points available per contract. At $5 per point. The S&P pays $50 a point. The Dow pays $5. Important to keep in mind, there's that 10-to-1 ratio you'll almost always find between those two. And then, of course, if someone stayed in, depends upon how far you're trailing your stop. If you were trailing behind this candle, you actually stayed in the move. And the move put in a low down at 08. Hey, Dane, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dwayne.
Hey, Bert.
Dane.
Hey, I got Dane with me today.
All right. Thank you so much. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How about you?
Good, good. Dane, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for the help getting on here.
You betcha.
I sent you a few links today.
You did. I was taking a peek at that email, and I'm going to go back to it right now. Let's see. The first one. We'll start at the top, and I'll put it up on the screen so everybody can take a look at it at the same time. How was your weekend?
Oh, yeah, good. I guess if you can.
Huh?
I mean, it's every day is interesting. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, are you always wrapped up in your work, or do you ever have just normal days?
Almost never. I mean, I'm involved.
That's
I'm
a
involved
tough
in
question.
every day.
Are you? Okay. Okay. All right. I've got this up on the screen from Global Research. The secret stupid Saudi-U.S. deal on Syria oil gas pipeline war. Fill us in. Tell us what we need to glean out of this.
As the American public continues to be fed an endless stream of false narratives and propaganda about why we're intervening all over the world, it's important that people get to the core of the issue. And in the case of Syria, the moment Assad refused to sign a U.S.-backed, Saudi-backed pipeline across their country, the wheels to topple that country and that democratically elected official were put into motion. And this is not in any way an endorsement of Assad or a support of him or who he is. It's simply stating the fact that what's the real reason we're there? And people should start to connect the dots if they care. I mean, it's not hard to connect these dots, but in the case of, for example, Saddam Hussein, who was obviously not a good guy, but a guy that we were more than happy arming with chemical weapons, which he used on innocent civilians, and we continued to back him right up until the point where he was not assisting U.S. interests, which in this case was to promote the dollar as the global reserve currency by using the dollar to trade oil with. And when he wanted to not use the dollar suddenly, he was taken out, and people still believe that it was because of WMD that he had, which he didn't have, and that he was connected to 9/11, which wasn't true. So the American population simply needs to wake up as to what's really behind all these military adventures, and then tracing it back further, what programmed the American population to support anything the power structure wants to do in Eurasia. We're right back to 9/11, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is the catalyst that allowed, and I don't know, for those listeners that want to investigate this, if you look at the Project for a New American Century called PNAC, of which Rumsfeld, Cheney, and all the rest, and this is not, I'm not Democrat or Republican, I'm not on any side, it's all a facade, but a year and a half before 9/11, they stated on the record, and this is public information, that they needed a, quote, new Pearl Harbor to galvanize the American population to support their agenda of militarization and authorization. And poof, there it was. So if people, I know these are not pleasant truths, but if people look at what's really going on right now, and they need to look, because we're not just about to go into World War III, it's already starting, really. I mean, this is a proxy war in Syria. And the real reason comes down to power and control. It has nothing to do with freedom and democracy, nothing whatsoever. And for those, we talked about some events last week with the U.S., the bombing of the Syrian troops, which allowed ISIS to take over more ground, very strategic ground. And then the U.S. imposes immediately a no-fly zone, which means that those that are actually bombing the terrorists can no longer do that, that they can't even be allowed in the air. Who are they really supporting here? I think we need to ask ourselves that. Is the U.S. really fighting ISIS or actually covertly supporting them?
Now, it says here, one of the weirdest anomalies of the recent NATO bombing campaign, allegedly against the ISIS, or ISIL, or whatever you want to call them, is the fact, with major war raging in the world's richest oil region, the price of crude oil has been dropping, dramatically so, since June, when ISIS suddenly captured the oil-rich region of Iraq around Mosul and Kirkuk. The benchmark Brent price of crude oil dropped some 20%, from 112 to about 88. Well, we're sure a lot lower than that now. Okay, this article goes back to March. So the Saudis stepped up their production as a result of this, correct?
Yes, but this actually, again, the web is much more complex than the American population has been led to believe, and you have, economic warfare going on with the attempt to destabilize nations, and the Saudis overproducing, drop the oil price, which had a huge effect on Russia, Brazil, other countries, Venezuela. So, this is just another form of economic warfare, and if you look at the history of this kind of economic warfare on countless levels and countless arenas, countless fronts, it's just all part of business as usual. And this is where the American population should ask themselves, why do nations all over the globe send us all their resources when their people barely have enough to eat? Does anyone ask themselves that? Is it just because they love us so much? Or is it because they're being forced to? I think it's an important question.
Now, who are you referring to?
Where would we start? I mean, in for example, Central America and all the things that have gone on there for how long, and the death squads that were set up by John Bolton, if you know who John Bolton is, and people that should be in jail that were set up to protect U.S. interests in these Central American countries, where they basically the control over resources and what they do, and the whole drug war situation is sort of plugged into that as well. And we all know about the the Iran-Contra scenario. I think that's historically clear. Our military was involved in selling drugs, and the guy who covered that, Gary Webb, ended up dead, right? So, it's just that people, it's a hard truth, but I think, on so many levels, it's imperative that people, and this is very difficult to do, I understand that, but it's to really wipe the slate clean where we're looking through a clear lens. And it's such I'm gloves off with my trying to disseminate this data because we're very late in the game. People who think their lives are going to be the same much longer need to wake up, because they're not going to be. I mean, we're in free falling into a completely different paradigm. And on that note, I'm about to post a document that's a few days old. It's a memorandum of global climate security signed by Barack Obama. It's called the Presidential Memorandum Climate Change and National Security. And in this document, they don't admit to climate engineering, but I mean, it couldn't be more painfully obvious that this is exactly what they're talking about, just trying to grant the U.S. military whatever programs they might have that relate to climate and national security, i.e. climate engineering, just to protect those programs, to further authorize more resources for those programs. And this stuff's going on over people's heads, and they don't, they can't even believe what they see with their own eyes because they're so trained to believe the official narrative on everything that they ignore their God-given sense of reason, and that's a problem. That's truly a problem for us all. Americans need to wake out of their stupor, and it's not just this country. Other affluent first world nations are to a large degree in the same boat, but nowhere is it really as prevalent as here in America. Nowhere have the population been so dumbed down. Have you had a chance, Dwayne, to see Snowden yet?
No, I haven't. Has anybody in the audience, anyone in the audience seen Snowden yet?
While we're waiting for that, I'll certainly chime in. It was I thought, an exceptional film, and certainly, gosh, for those who would try to paint Snowden as a traitor, anybody who would take that position is simply trying to protect their own denial, their own ideology, at the expense of the truth, at the expense of someone who sacrificed all to get at the truth, and who was completely on the other side of the fence. I don't know, many people don't know that. Snowden was completely on the other side of a lot of things in regard to his... Did you know he was enrolled in special forces initially? Many people might not know that. I didn't know it either initially.
No, I thought he was just like a desk clerk. Or
he became that because the training in special forces actually was responsible for his leg being broken and the other one being fractured, and he was medically not given the choice. He couldn't press on, but he wanted to simply serve the country in that manner, and was forced because of those health issues. His body was just not robust enough to take that training, and he was forced into the other direction. But he was obviously incredibly smart, and he ended up in a position where he just simply started to find things out that were completely contrary to what he believed, and he's wired in a way that made him unable to look the other way. And that's unfortunate. We don't have more people that are like that, because we have a society full of people that are more than willing to look the other way if they perceive that it serves the preservation of their own bubble. And that's really unfortunate, because I think we have a responsibility to face the truth. And I think Scripture would say that, would it not too, Dwayne? That before you knew the truth, your sins were washed away. Now that you know, they remain. That's Scripture, right?
Sounds like you know what you're quoting, but I don't know. I'm not sure the Scripture that you're quoting.
It's there. It's there, and I think our sense of reason would back that up.
And how does that relate to what you're referring to here?
To Snowden, because he had that sense of responsibility. Once
Okay.
he knew things, he couldn't look the other way.
Right.
Just
No,
couldn't.
okay.
He refused to. He risked everything. He literally risked everything.
Well, he did. Sure.
Yeah.
He did. And he's also warned everyone. He just came out with an article the other day. There's a new app. There's a new app called Allo, A-L-L-O. Are you familiar with that?
No.
Let's see. Snowden says, don't use Allo. Edward Snowden warns about the dangers of using Google Allo. Okay, it's a Google product. I was thinking it was Microsoft. This came out. I first read it. This article says it was published 4 months ago, but the app itself just came out, I think. When Google announced the launch of 2 new messaging apps, the world wondered why. Duo is focused on video calling, while Allo is a more traditional messaging tool, albeit one with a Google Assistant built in. But while the world shrugged, Edward Snowden issued a stark warning. He says that Allo should be avoided, pointing out the lack of end-to-end encryption makes it dangerous. I want to find something more recent because there was something. That's April. Well, maybe if I spell Allo right, that could probably help. I'm just going to search Snowden and Allo and see if I can find the most recent news headline on that.
While you're looking that up, so you
Here
listeners
it
know
is.
that,
Mhm.
go ahead. I'll let you finish what you got there right in front of you.
Well, all it says is this was published September 22nd. Following the launch of Google's messaging app Allo and its accompanying assistant bot, security experts are up in arms over Google reneging on a promise to better protect its users. NSA contractor turned whistleblower Edward Snowden did a hot take on Allo yesterday after its U.S. launch. So he was warning about this back in April, but it was just launched. The app itself was just launched this month. He came to the conclusion that it was nothing more than a honeypot for U.S. surveillance efforts. It's a free app, free for download. The controversy goes back to Google's developers conference in May. There, Google demonstrated the new application to a crowd at Shoreline Amphitheater while promising Allo would be encrypted and safe for users. Allo uses end-to-end encryption too, at least via an incognito mode, just like Chrome. You'll also be able to decide how long messages stick around. If you're looking for something similar, Allo is a bit like a private, semi-automated Facebook social layer that you can use privately. Comments made by Google representatives we spoke with after the event suggested that the data sent and received by Allo would be stored, albeit transiently, on its own servers, meaning Google won't keep your chat logs in a place where they could be subpoenaed, and it doesn't assign an identity to the stored messages. Or you could enable incognito mode to encrypt the conversation end to end, and Google can't read it at all. Months later, Google backed off of the previously announced privacy feature and opted to store all non-incognito messages by default. This is a complete 180 from its original plan, and it never formally announced the change. In fact, we only found out after Allo's public launch. As it stands, Allo is currently on par with most chat applications in that it uses HTTPS to secure transmission between devices. Put simply, it's mostly safe from hackers, but the data is readily available at Google data centers and readable by anyone with the clearance to do so. Like Snowden said, it's essentially a honeypot for three-letter government agencies. The information is stored in an identifiable way, just waiting for a subpoena to access it. It's not like the subpoenas are difficult to get. The U.S. Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court approved all of nearly 1,500 communications intercept requests made by the NSA and FBI last year. That's not to say that Allo is completely unsafe. When enabled, incognito mode uses the same encryption protocol as Signal, which Snowden previously vouched for. By default, though, it's basically a grab bag of offal. Maybe it's best to stick with known commodities in the security space and avoid shiny new toys like Allo. And I forget what it was about the Allo app that made it. I think the assistant that's built into it, the thing that makes it so attractive to people is that as you're using it, the little assistant down at the bottom, like if you and I are having a discussion about the football game on Sunday, it will read our conversation, and it might throw me up some interesting tidbits or information about the game or some statistics or something. That's my understanding. I've not downloaded it and used it. I don't have any plan to. So anyway, Snowden's still in the news. What's ultimately going to happen to him?
Well, we'll see, but this is the point. The movie makes incredibly clear, and the documentation we have makes incredibly clear. We have an unimaginably massive security, industrial, military complex, and then we can add the pharmaceutical industrial complex, but the surveillance is total, and they have long since had the capability to watch, look, listen, even through devices that are not turned on, laptops, whatever. And this is, why would we think otherwise? Who in their right mind would think otherwise? We think the government's not going to do this because they wouldn't do something they didn't think was right? Really? Those at the top are the most spineless, cowardly, criminal. I could go on and on. I mean, they exist for their own ends, period. The American population is not only not to be protected, but is actually considered a liability to those in power, period. The American population needs to wake up as they're blindly waving their flags around and pushing this sort of false patriotism that doesn't question the official narrative. That's not patriotism, it's cowardice. When you refuse to question the official narrative and look below the surface and find out what's really going on and why, that's not patriotism. That's just simply groupthink, herd mentality that is part of what brought us to this dark place. What Kennedy tried to warn us about, how long did he last? A week?
Yeah.
Before he was clearly taken out. And so, again, this was not a job I wanted. I couldn't be more non-political. I never, ever had any political bent at all. I did, but once these issues came to my attention and you start to go deeper into the realm of what's really going on, it's just I can't look the other way. I just can't. And I would challenge anyone to research and dispute anything I'm saying.
Now, I've just brought up the a second link, U.S. Coalition Intelligence Operations Room inside Syria, destroyed by Russian missile attack. 30 Israeli, American, British, Turkish, Saudi, Qatari intelligence officials killed. This is dated September 22nd. So this just happened?
Yes, and let's consider the ramifications there. What does that tell us? They were existing inside ISIS-controlled territory, directing operations. It backs up everything we've said. That they're not only not trying to beat ISIS back, they're actually involved in their operations. And, again, how many dots do we need to connect? I mean, we have Turkey buying oil from ISIS, helping to support ISIS. We have ISIS driving around in Toyota trucks that were purchased by the Pentagon. Your listeners can look that up, verify it. And I'm saying that, how clear does it need to be that this is the threat that those in power need in order to put the American population in a certain mindset that allows those in power to do whatever they want. And again, all of it goes back to 9/11. And if you look at some of the mantras from those that were certainly on the inside, and not only is the human race not hitting the brakes, they're hitting the accelerator. We're building more weapons of war with the last remaining resources of the planet. Selling weapons to Saudi Arabia. What have we sold to Saudi Arabia? $115 billion worth of weapons in the last decade, something like that, to Saudi Arabia, who beheads dissenters. I don't think anybody argues Saudi Arabia is a completely tyrannical dictatorship.
Yeah,
why are we selling them weapons?
There's not much nice going on over there. So, so this Russian attack against a U.S. NATO intelligence facility, reported by Fars News Agency, has not been picked up by the media, nor has it been acknowledged at the official level. So I can.
And of course, it wouldn't be. How could they? They couldn't acknowledge. They can't acknowledge that, because to acknowledge it would be to admit that they're actually directing ISIS operations and a part of it, and being allowed to be in their territory. And they can't acknowledge it. Our media can't.
Washington has not acknowledged it, and Moscow has not provided an official confirmation of the attack. The Russian media is mum on the subject, and so is Washington. Neither side has interest in making the issue public. So, then are we to assume that Russia is the only one who is not happy with ISIS? I mean, why would Russia blow up this operations room, as it's called? What's their motivation?
Because they're actually fighting ISIS, as is the Assad regime, actually fighting ISIS, as were the nearly 100 Syrian troops that our government just blew up at the start of the ceasefire. They were actually fighting ISIS. And I think this whole paradigm of, we're supporting the moderate terrorists, there's no moderate terrorists. Okay, they're all terrorists. And what they're supporting is the same as they supported Osama bin Laden. If anybody investigates that, we fully supported Osama bin Laden in Afghanistan. So, the U.S. has had no trouble supporting despotic rulers as long as it suited their end. And you can't serve two masters, can you? I mean, it's
nope. No, but that is scriptural. Yeah, I'm real familiar with that.
So was the first.
I'm sure it was. I'm just trying to remember the scripture that you were referring to.
And it's again, we're just at a point where people have to wake up. They have to wake up, and it's not pleasant. It's truly not pleasant. And you're doing really a very difficult job, and I really respect you for that. It's not easy to face things that challenge everything we've believed in and been taught to believe in. But I would argue,
I mean, it goes beyond that. I mean, it takes away our hope of not only a better tomorrow, but any tomorrow. I mean, it appears it appears that we don't have any. Now I've got the link up. Syria attack on aid convoy kills 20, destroys aid, and obliterates U.S. war crimes. This is dated September 21st, so that's current as well.
And the point of that headline is that came immediately after the U.S. had to admit it bombed the Syrian troops who were actually fighting ISIS. And so the headline you read is a little unclear in the way they verbed it, but it just means that the bombing of the aid convoy was the needed event to eclipse the news story that the U.S. just bombed almost 100 Syrian soldiers that are actually fighting ISIS, helping ISIS to gain more ground. So why would we think that Syria or Russia would bomb the aid convoy that they did everything to help to happen? And that's just the same as like the when the UN inspectors went into Syria to inspect for the chemical weapons, and then the moment they're there in Syria, Syria supposedly with very non-sophisticated weapons that we would expect from the rebels, not from Syrian government, they used chemical weapons. The moment the UN inspectors got there, that they let come into their country to inspect for chemical weapons, we're going to think that they're dumb enough to use chemical weapons the moment the inspectors got there? I mean, it's not hard to see that the regime that runs this country, the war hawks, the like Project for a New American Century and so forth, it's not hard to see through their theater if people just try. And there was an event in Iraq where some British MI6 agents, I think, they were dressed like Arabs in a car full of explosives, and they were caught by the Iraqi police, and then within hours the British military showed up with tanks to get them out of jail. What were they doing dressed up like Arabs with car bombs in there? Just to foment more violence and more division between the various factions there? And these are stories that don't make the news. You can find that one too. That's well documented. So I'm just saying that, gosh, people need to wake up again. It's a tough time, and I apologize. I'm going to have to duck out a little early today, but if on the larger picture, to leave in a nutshell, and on the hope, I wanted to finish on the hope part, because that's what people, we've been trained that unless we can have a happy ending, or what we perceive to be a happy ending, then we shouldn't try at all. And I would argue that we have the responsibility to do the right thing no matter what, regardless of a guaranteed happy ending or not. And that in doing the right thing, the story does end well, no matter what. That if we're here for a reason, and if we do our best to fulfill that calling of, once we're shown the truth, and however painful it is, we face it head on, to take one step on that path is to have arrived. To take one step and to try to fulfill what we know our Maker would want us to fulfill, to not put our head in the sand and say, oh well, I just sit here and do nothing. The parable of the talents makes clear that we're not supposed to sit and do nothing. So we have a responsibility, and I would argue that the only solace exists in facing that responsibility head on, and not concerning ourselves with that which is not in our hands, which is in bigger hands, but to concern ourselves with that which is in our hands, which is to look at the truth, to clarify what it is, verify what it is, and to expose it, and to try to do the right thing, because it's the right thing to do. Not because we're guaranteed any particular outcome, but because it's the right thing to do, period. And there is solace in that, no matter what happens. Because the climate system is imploding. We have the military-industrial complex are fueling that fire with what they're doing. They won't let go of the weather weapons. They won't. We have radio frequency manipulation of the atmosphere. We have I don't know if you've ever, your listeners may not have heard of Project Starfish. Just to give a historical context, that we
About